first, let's go to Peter Doocy outside what must be a bevy of activity today, the White House. Peter. Wow.
Yeah, there's going to be, Harris. And these special counsel observations of President Biden look bad. So we asked the president, how bad?
Biden, something the special counsel said in his report is that one of the reasons you were not charged is because, in his description, you are a well-meaning elderly man with a poor memory.
I'm well-meaning, and I'm an elderly man, and I know what the hell I'm doing. I've been president. I put this country back on its feet. I don't need his recommendation. It's totally
How bad is your memory, and can you continue as president?
My memory is so bad, I let you speak.
Yeah, well, the report was so bad, Biden's lawyers ahead of time tried to have that stuff stricken, writing to the special counsel before the report's release. We do not believe that the report's treatment of President Biden's memory is accurate or appropriate. And besides, President Biden says he didn't do this.
I take responsibility for not having seen exactly what my staff was doing. It goes in and points out. Things that appeared in my garage, things that came out of my home, things that were moved not by me, but my staff.
President Biden is also disputing a line in her report that he forgot what year Beau Biden, his son, passed away.
I know there's some attention paid to some language in the report about my recollection of events. There's even reference that I don't remember when my son died. How in the hell dare he raise that? Frankly, when I was asked the question, I thought to myself, it wasn't any of their damn business.
It's a very emotional topic, but as we understand it, it was some of their damn business because when you go back to the reporting from January of 2023 at the Biden office, some of the classified materials were reportedly mixed in with materials about Beau Biden's memorial service. Harris.
I started off with it's sad, but most importantly, not presidential behavior. Peter Doocy, thank you. The Wall Street Journal editorial board with this headline: Biden's doddering document defense. It writes Biden was well aware of the rules required to protect national secrets. All of this also raises a question of double standards. Trump is alleged to have lied about the documents and refused to cooperate, in contrast to Biden. That may be true, but Hur's report will still be front and center as part of Trump's defense. And you can bet it will now be a staple of Trump's presidential campaign. Brett Tolman, former U.S. attorney and former counsel for the Senate Judiciary Committee. You know what? I want to start with something that people may not remember. And it's how we found out about those documents in the first place. And that they had been sitting, some of them, at the Penn Center with Biden's name on it. And they weren't actually turned over until many days after those documents had been unearthed. And 4 months later, the public was told about them. Your thoughts?
Harris, thanks for having me on. I will tell you that I have some very interesting thoughts on this. One, I have a case right now, a private citizen that possessed and illegally retained classified documents, and I'm absolutely certain that they are intent on charging him with a felony. And so it's a contrast to watch and see a special counsel identify this as a private citizen illegally retaining classified documents, and then above that is disclosing information from those classified documents. You highlight a very important point, and that is how we got here in the first place. But let me make note of something that not a lot of people are talking about. Why did the special prosecutor make in his report these comments about Joe Biden's mental state? He did so because there is a requirement in the Department of Justice that you bring a case if you have sufficient evidence to get past a jury. So this was a grasp by the special counsel because they do have enough evidence to get past a jury. They had to somehow identify something that would give them a hesitation to present it to a jury. And that was the only thing. This should tell us how weak their justification is for not bringing the case, because their only line of doubt is that he is so old and his memory is so bad, they worry about getting it past a jury. The public needs to see why the special counsel is going through that manipulation in order to justify no charges.
So that's really interesting. And when you say evidence, that they had sufficient evidence, I fact-checked some of what the president said last night. And among those things was that, in fact, he had shared classified information with at least one person we know of, and that was the ghostwriter, which then that person would repeat that information because you're using it for a memoir, and then some of it was top secret. I mean, so if that's what you mean by evidence, the report tells us that they had evidence.
Yeah, and in addition to that, Harris, you're absolutely right. There is sufficient evidence to get it past a jury, and that standard is beyond a reasonable doubt. Above that, you have allegations that there may have been some destruction of audio tapes in reaction to the notification that Joe Biden was going to be interviewed and investigated for this. So if that's the case, you have an even more compelling reason to bring the case, because you have potential obstruction of justice by some of those that were interacting with the president.
Well, he threw every staff member under the bus, and I'd have to imagine over the years that those papers have been sitting in, various places, in torn boxes, that sort of thing. I bet there were many staff members that have left and come and gone, and so that's a lot of people. So that was kind of an easy out. That's like blaming a stadium full of people, probably. All right, not that many, but a few. The left is now, if we get to politics now, is directing their anger to Attorney General Merrick Garland. Here's a posting online. I'm furious. It's another James Comey deja vu event from 2016. A political hit job was allowed to be published without any guardrails of political balance and protocol. With the special counsel report, it pushed Trump closer to re-election. Merrick Garland must resign today. Your response?
Merrick Garland had one job, and that job was to justify not charging Joe Biden and justify charging Donald Trump. We don't agree with the analysis the Department of Justice has been using, but that was the one job, and it tells you how close a call this came with Joe Biden, that they had to rely on something that was going to also be damaging, but it really was their only card they could play was, we don't think he's competent to stand trial. And if that's and the reason for that is it all goes back to they had plenty of evidence to bring this case, and they had justification to bring it since they brought one very similar against President Trump.
Do you think it's a pass? I mean, if he can't stand being indicted, how in the world is he allowed to stand being a commander-in-chief? He's got the world's best military at his fingertips. Like, how is that allowed to happen, but they can't indict him? I mean, that feels like a pass. Why can't they go for it? There are a lot of people who can't remember things, and they still end up in court.
And Harris, I've never seen a prosecutor screen a potential case that has this much evidence on a classified documents retention and disclosure case in which they made the arguments for the defense and the defendant in their analysis of whether to bring the case. It's unprecedented.
Wow. And you've got that case cooking right now, so you know what these things look like side by side for regular citizens and the most powerful American in the country, Joe Biden. Good to see you. Thank you, Brett, for breaking it down.
Hey, everyone. I'm Emily Campagno. Catch me and my co-hosts Harris Faulkner and Kaylee McEnany on Outnumbered every weekday at 12 p.m. Eastern, or set your DVR. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page for daily highlights.